I made calabash soup.
All right, all right. Welcome to a new, the latest episode of Political Animals. Today we're going to talk about Keir Starmer. With hi to our fans in UK if there are any watching right now. Um, Keir Starmer had a press conference with his overlord Donald Trump, and during the conference he made some statements which were totally out of proportion, and which any Jewish person or human person in the world should take as an insult. But this is not the first time he said this. So during the conference, one of the reporters asked him, shouldn't you recognize Palestine as a nation before Trump leaves UK? And also, if you don't do it, don't you think that you're playing into the hands of Hamas? And Keir Starmer made it. This is what he did. Let me make this absolutely clear. October 7th was the worst attack in history since the Holocaust. So what he was saying is that what happened on October the 7th is the worst thing that's happened since the Holocaust. And Trump tapped him on the back and said, "Good boy." I'm not lying. You got to watch. Did you see the video, Kole? Trump tapped
Yeah,
him on.
it's live now. It's actually there. He's still addressing him and Trump are
Yeah,
still in front of the camera
Trump
right now.
tapped him on the back, which means like you said the right thing. He said this before. He said this at the memorial for October 7th. So this is clearly showing you that this is a plain point that his overlord from the US, from AIPAC, from Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, and he's staying in line, which is why Trump pats on the back. And I'm going to be real with you. Back in the past, if you said something like, let's say, September 11th is the worst thing since the Holocaust, Jewish people will get mad and say you're downplaying the Holocaust. You get my point? There's no way in which we can say that October the 7th ranks anywhere even in the top 1,000 of travesties that's happened in the history of humanity. And to compare it to a Holocaust where 6 million people were exterminated is it's actually just goes to show you how either these politicians are either very stupid or they're very corrupt. I think it's that he's just very corrupt because Trump patted him on the back after saying it. That's body language. Like, thank you for having the balls to say that, because it's so ridiculous, but you're sticking on point. What are your thoughts, Kunle?
Yes, when these Western leaders lie, like Prime Minister Keir Starmer, they always leave out very important details about October 7th. There's not been any investigation. How come there were 2 hours before anybody came? 800 of those people were killed by
Friendly fire.
Israel out of the 1,200. There were no there were no dead babies in ovens and all of that. But they keep repeating the lie and the rhetoric, thinking that somehow it's going to, I don't know, cook people's brains into believing a lie. All it's doing is making the people more angry. He's very lucky the next election is in 2029 in England, which is quite far, because what he's doing is appalling. Also, in the prisons right now, there's been an outbreak of scabies, and the Israeli government, soldiers are refusing to treat the scabies. It's clear that about 75 prisoners have died in their custody since October
I heard that some
7th.
of the prisoners are raped and humiliated.
Beatings and waterboardings and rapes are becoming more rampant because the government sought to justify and made out some of these when they were caught on video raping a Palestinian prisoner. The Israeli people made out that these people are heroes. This is a demonic state. I'm sorry, it's demonic behavior.
No,
There's
it's
no other
actually a
word
demonic
I
state.
can
It's
think
a
of
demonic state.
to
I've never
describe it
this is
except demonic
this is a
behavior.
demonic state. And let's go back to Germany. Hitler came and overtook Germany, not overtook, but he rose to power in a fascist movement and killed Jews. But a lot of the German citizens did not know of it. Israel is more scary than Nazi Germany because the whole country, its whole reason for existing is actually to wipe out Arabs, and the citizens are behind it. And if you try to talk to them and say, "Well, what about the kids?" They spit and say, "Well, what about our 48 prisoners?" This state is a very ugly state. Continue, Kunle.
Yeah, I
Kunle.
mean, like you said, I mean, I know you said it's not really important or relevant for me to point this out that the president that there are no more civilian hostages being held by
Yeah.
Israel. That's just an aside point.
No, yeah,
Because
that's
they're making out
so
like they're
they're
holding women and
prisoners.
children.
Yeah, but it's still valid here because these are prisoners of war.
Yeah,
And
they're prisoners of war. They're
Yeah.
soldiers. They were on land that belongs to Palestine that is illegal for them to occupy since 1967. These are violent prisoners of war who have encroached on land that they are not supposed to in accordance with international law. Hamas has a right under international law as an occupied people to armed resistance. So everything that Hamas is doing is actually in abidance of international law. It is unfortunate, however, that they did that they did kill 100 civilians. That is regrettable. That is unforgivable. That is unfortunate. But 100 civilians compared to 300,000 civilians, come on.
And let's keep this clear. Russia has killed civilians. Ukraine has killed civilians. America and Iran killed thousands of civilians. And so none of that would justify the other side subjecting them. None of this would justify subjecting Russia or Ukraine or America or any other country that kills civilians and takes civilians hostage, or even attacks another country unjustifiably the way the U.S. attacked Iraq, to now subject them to a genocide. It's illegal.
Yeah.
What is that going
And,
yeah.
I keep repeating, Hamas killed 400 people and took about 300 hostages. Israel killed 800 people. They killed 800 of those 1,200 civilians. It's not repeated enough. They killed 800. They are the ones that killed most of them, that they are calling the biggest Holocaust. They used Hannibal Directive to kill 800 people. What not? And then they use that as an excuse to slaughter 300,000. They haven't even done an investigation into what happened on that day. So how can you condemn Hamas when you've not done an investigation?
Let's look. And this October the 7th, it wasn't an act of war. It was a counter strike in a war that's been going on since the 1940s. Let's make it clear.
False flag.
Since the 1940s or 50s, Israel, and even before that, from the Balfour back into the 1900s, the goal is to get all the Arab-speaking people out of Palestine. Not only that, their goal is also to get everybody out of Lebanon and Iran, but they can't because those countries are too big and powerful. But that was their ultimate plan: is to take Lebanon, to take Syria, to take Iran, take Palestine, and make that one Jewish state. So what happened on October the 7th was just one battle, one strike by Hamas in a war that's been going on. If you look at it in the 1970s, who's that guy, the butcher? The guy they call the butcher who attacked Beirut, Sharon. Sharon and these guys were killing Palestinians in Beirut. So this thing goes back. It's not like all of a sudden Hamas came out and said, let's do a terrorist strike. This has been an ongoing conflict. Whether you think who you think is right or wrong, it's been an ongoing conflict. So to make October the 7th the dividing line is only because that's when you wanted to that's the point at which you wanted to begin your final solution to the problem of Palestinians. Sorry, go on, Kunle.
Yeah, there's been an ongoing, there's been 22 massacres on the Gaza Strip prior to October 7th. 22. There was a missile attack a few weeks before October 7th on Palestinian people. There were strikes. They've been, and they call it a series of these strikes. They call it mowing the lawn. They think they're just reducing the population a little bit. And the Operation Defensive Edge and all these other operations have been going on in order to just slaughter civilians. And they've been doing it since 1948 with the Nakba, which was the last slaughter that was comparative to this. The Nakba dwarfs anything that happened on October 7th. What has happened dwarfs what happened on October the 7th. Yeah, so these are all repetitive lies. And because nobody has the military capacity to stop America and Britain, the American and British government from committing this genocide, because we simply don't. But then again, Hitler as well, in 1941, nobody had the will or capacity to stop him. And they thought that they would continue on with impunity before they started. I do want to believe that something like that will happen here, but I do believe that what will happen is that Israel will become a pariah state, it will be boycotted, and it will be disbanded, and the entire region will become Palestine. And that will be worth it. That is the only solution now. Two-state solution is out. Now, for me, the only solution is that there can be no longer any kind of country called Israel. It should be Palestine. If you want to stay there, you obey the rules, and the Palestinians own their country. And those guys need to get the hell out back to whatever part of the reaches of the Western world that they left to if they're not going to respect the laws. It cannot be an ethno-apartheid state anymore. An
I think
ethno-apartheid
what will
state
happen,
does
to be
not
honest
have
with you,
the right to exist
I
in the
think what will
modern law.
happen is, I think what was more likely going to happen is that Netanyahu is going to be charged with war crimes, all of this, and all this stuff is going to be wiped out, and Israel will have no choice but to exist as a nation which doesn't aggress its other members. The only reason I say that is because I don't see anybody waging war against Israel to make them go back and give up that country.
And
Maybe
then the
Iran.
question, why is it every time Israel commits an attack on innocents, they say they want to wait for investigation before they make a decision? But on this particular issue of October 7th, they haven't done any investigation, but they've done the condemnation. You know, there
We
is
all
there's
know.
so much hypocrisy in
I'll
this
end here.
slaughter. It's disgusting.
I'll end here. Here's the problem, and this has been the truth since the beginning of time, even during the period of slavery. Whoever has power gets to be the person who says what's true and what's legal and what's not, and it's just rule based. So it's rules based. They know they're hypocrites, but you can't tell them they're hypocrites because they'll kill you. That just like
That's basically it.
that's it.
That's basically it. What we are facing now is what we faced with the Nazis, which is basically might is right. And that should not
but
be the way of the world in the
at least with
21st
the
century.
Nazis, at least with the Nazis, the British were against them, America was against them, so there was somebody to stop them. But with this thing with Palestine, nobody is willing to take up arms to defend them. Russia and China, they don't want to rock the boat. What Russia and China are doing though is that they're now beginning to give weapons to Egypt. China gave Egypt anti-air missiles. So what they're doing is they're just going to slowly build bricks until one day America, China, and Russia will be the new America. I'm not saying that is a bad thing. In other words, once all those countries have, like Iran has nuclear weapons stuff, then you can't fuck with them anymore. But it's China and Russia who's in the background supporting them. Sort of like with the Korea War, which was really a war between between China and America. So that's what Russia and those countries are doing. Rather than say, oh, we're going to stop you from doing it, they're going to make sure that all of your enemies are armed anyway. But the problem is that Palestine is the only one that's going to be the Palestine is going to be the sacrificial lamb because they can't get those weapons to them because Israel has blockaded them and they don't have enough of a population. What do you think? Then we head out.
Yeah, Western democracy is going to fail in its ability to dominate the world because it has shown it has an
Oh,
inability to provide basic justice and human rights, which it claims to be the bastion of. And look at history. Once that empire can no longer provide basic justice, it dies. That's why the Nazis died. The British Empire lasted long, not because they had a big army, but because for a while they were able to provide the idea that they're providing basic justice. But once that became exposed, the empire died. When the Nazis, the Russians welcomed the Nazis, but then when the Nazis were brutal to the Russians fought back. That's why, even though their army was more powerful than the British, their empire only lasted 6 years because they were so quick to not provide basic justice to the common man. When your empire does not provide basic justice to the common man, it dies. Israel will be dead in 5 or 6 years, I do believe.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is just be a slow exodus back to Europe and back to America. That's what we say. All right, take us out, man. That was a good one. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been an emotional look into the machinations of politics and the evils that men do in this world to justify further evil. And from myself and Mustafa, we wish to bid you farewell, adieu. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.
Enjoy your beer.